Hey everyone. Well, I've shown you before how to do a 7mm slimline pen, one of your most basic pens. But now today we are going to be doing a navigator style fountain pen. Now fountain pens are ones that you don't usually see around anymore, but they are more known for using the pointy nib, which is used to draw ink from a cartridge and puts it at the tip of the pen. And as you can tell, this is quite a big set here as I'm trying to get the nib out. And yeah, this is what the nib looks like. But it uses the capillary effect to draw ink from the cartridge or pump. And like I said, it uses that to draw out the ink. So this one is quite more complicated than your standard 7mm pen. So I'm going to be doing the navigator style. There's different styles. Like I said, they will vary depending on which one you're doing. Now, as far as fountain pens, there's a European style, which requires you to create a tenon down to the barrel. And like I said, you need the instruction booklet, to figure that out. But I'll show you the navigator style. And for this, last time we did wood. I showed you how to do it on ash. This time we're going to be using acrylic. Now acrylic is just hard plastic, and they can come in different colors. This one I decided to go with a silver. And this is a 1.5 inch blank because the drills necessary for this style fountain pen is quite large, and a typical 3/4 inch blank is not going to handle them. So as we have done before, we are going to start off with cutting off the pieces of the blank. I've already drawn off where I am going to be cutting. I know it's a little hard to see in there because I used pencil, but we're going to cut those out using the bandsaw, and then we will start putting the drill in. And I'm going to line this up. And if you don't remember, we use the barrels to figure out how much we need to cut. And there is one other thing I need to mention. In the slimline pen, both of the barrels are the same. This time, the barrels are different. One of them is going to be used for the body of the pen, which is this one. And the other is going to be used for the cap. So what I did was that the body, I put down here for cut this part. And for the cap, I've gone over here, and the rest is just going to be cut off just to save us some time. Alright, so I've already measured up where I'm supposed to go. Alright, and so we will now start cutting our blank in preparation for the drill bits. And as always, watch your hands, keep them away from the blade. And before I do that, I'm going to lower the guard just above the blank. That's about good enough. I'm going to lock it in. All right, and we're ready to go. Okay, so that's the body taken out, and I'm going to readjust the fence so we can cut off the excess. Well, actually, I think I'm going to have to lift the guard a little bit so the fence can get a little closer. Because that's a little too much of what I'm asking. So So I'm going to raise the guard, and it's right around, if I can get it to cooperate with me, right around here. All right, so now we'll cut off this part of the blank. All right, so that will be our cap. All right, so it's important that I keep those separate because that's where the drill bits are going to be going. Okay, so I'm going to zoom us out and I'm going to get rid of the excess. All right, so now we're going to go to drilling. And before I do that, I'm going to draw off the centers. So, here. Okay, so now in this particular kit, we need two different drill bits. We need now these are going to be weird measurements, but a 25/64 inch and a 15/32 inch. I mean, those are weird numbers, but that's what the kit calls for. We'll start with the 15/32, which is for the cap. So I'm gonna take this blank and we're gonna move it over to the bench press. And just like before, we're gonna go all the way through the blank. I'm gonna make sure we are lined up with it. And just a little bit lower, and I'll move my clamps in just a minute. Yeah, I swear I need to get a new tripod. I'm gonna move my clamps. Okay, so got my drill. I just got to put the bit on. And just like before, don't go too fast down there, otherwise you're going to shatter the blank. And every once in a while, clear out the chips so they don't get caught in there. All right, we're just about at the end of the blank. All right. All the way through the blank. And wow, it's a little off center. Not exactly what I was hoping for, but Yeah, this is why some people prefer to use the lathe to do their drilling, but it should be okay. Well, actually, let me check the bearings. I have my bearings over here somewhere. Let's see. I have to make sure I get the correct bearings because these are different sizes. Let's see. I have to look for the. Okay. Yeah, I need to take a. Whoop, no, that's not the one I want. It's this one. Yeah, it'll be okay because the the bearing is just within it, so it'll be fine. So it was not ideal, but it'll work. Yeah, this is why some people decide to use it on a lathe rather than doing it by hand. So now we're going to do it for the other blank, but this time I need to switch over to the 25/64, which is a smaller drill bit. And for reference, by the way, that 30 seconds, that's just under 1/2 inch. All right, so now we're going to switch over to the other drill bit. We're going to try to be more careful with which direction it's going. Clean off some of the debris. And, all right, let's see if I can get it through properly this time. See if I did a better job on drilling that. Again, off center, but still better. But okay, so we got those blanks drilled in. So now, of course, the next step would be to put the barrels in. And for this, I'm going to need one of my gloves. Let's see. But yeah, of course, the next step is to just sand them down just a little bit. But I would rather get my hand ready because we're going to get to the CA glue shortly. So I'm going to get a bit of sandpaper and we'll rough up the ends, rough up the barrels. If I can even, there we go. So just like before, I'm going to pinch the sandpaper around the barrel and just scuff up the barrel to give the glue a better hold on the CA glue when it goes into the acrylic. Okay, do the same thing with the other barrel. Okay, so now, I'm going to start off with the cap blank, and let's see, I'm going to hold the barrel in my left hand so that the glue doesn't come on contact with my skin. And again, you want to use thick CA glue, and I'm going to enter it from this way so that we cut off more of the other end of the blank when we get to trimming the ends. So push it in just a little bit more. All right, gotta wait for that to dry. In the meantime, we're gonna go to the other blank. The same thing with this one. And of course, just make sure, that you hit the barrel in the correct blank. I'm gonna push this in. Okay, and we're gonna let that dry for a little bit, and I will be right back. Okay, just like before, we are going to trim the ends so that they are level with the barrels. So get the barrel trimmer on your drill and just go all the way to the edge of the brass barrel. Okay, the barrel trimmer is getting a little bit on the hot side, so I'm going to let it cool down for just a little bit. But in the meantime, it does look like there is quite a bit of excess on that end of the blank, so I may go ahead and cut off the remaining excess as soon as I'm done trimming the barrels. And we're almost there. Let's see. It's almost there. That's good enough. All right. I'm going to go ahead and trim the rest of the barrels, and then we will take them over to the lathe. All right, so now that the barrels have been put in and they have been trimmed, we can now go to the lathe. Like I said, I know that the drilling was not perfect, which is, again, why some people prefer to do the drilling on the lathe rather than do it by hand. But now we go to setting up the mandrel. Now for this set, there are 4 bearings, but they are not of equal size. Now, there are 2 bearings which are equal to each other. These are for the body. So we have first bearing, the body blank. Let's make sure that it goes all the way in. Second bearing. If I can push it in. Yeah, this one's giving me a hard time. There we go. All right, let's put it in. There we go. All right, now you have the second bearing. Again, we have 2 more bearings, but they, again, are not of equal size. So these are going to be for the cap. And I know the setup's a little wonky, but that's what I got. But we're going to work with it. So I'm going to put the locking nut on. Just going to push the mandrel in a little bit so we can actually get the nut on there. So, but we'll see how this turns out when we get there and I'm turning the mandrel the wrong way. There we go. All right. So we lock in. I'm actually going to make sure that we are aligning the grain. Okay. And then tailstock going on. And just like before, just a little bit of pressure. Don't need all that much. You don't want to bend the mandrel. Okay, and we're going to line up. We're going to line up the tool rest. I'm just going to get my gouge just to see where it lines up at. And I think this will be good. And as before, we're going to put the lathe on the high setting. So put it around 3,000 RPM. And I'm going to clean off my face shield from the previous project. I was using quite a bit of CA glue in the previous project I did, and it splattered all over my shield. Of course, let's not forget the respirator. Now, when cutting this, getting a perfect cut is going to make it look like streamers. So it's going to be like a party in here. But you approach it the same way as you usually do with wood. But we are going to do the same thing. We're going to be cutting them down to just a bit outside of the bearings. And just remember that you have 2 different parts. You got your body and your cap for this particular project anyway. And whichever tool you use, it is really a preference. This would be a good one to use carbide, but I'm going to stick with my bowl gouge for this project. I'm going to get my equipment on. And we're going to focus on getting the blanks rounded out. Alright, let's see. Yeah, it still has a little bit of work to do, and it's got a little weird shape there. I never seen it rounded like that before. But we're getting there, and you got to remember to take light cuts when going across it. Just take your time with it. Otherwise, you're going to get what we call pitting, because I'm going to show you a little closer. You see right around here, see there's little pits. Yeah, that's from it cutting into the acrylic. That's why you need to take smoother cuts when you're working on acrylic. We'll continue on. I mean, it's getting there, but we're getting a little weird shape because of me drilling it earlier and giving it that off-center hole. And by the way, you do take the time, if you get streamers caught in the lathe, don't worry about it, they come off very easily. So just take your time, just clean it off. If they start spinning the lathe and obscuring your vision, it's no big deal. So they're easily taken care of.
Now that's about the worst piece of pitting I've ever seen. Take a good look at that. Yeah, that is some bad pitting there, but luckily it did not get down to the bearing, so that can be cleaned up. Okay, so we are just outside the bearings. So we're going to start sanding, and I want to get as close as I can to the bearings. So I'm going to start with 120 and then work my way up.
Hey, future self here. Well, I need to make a correction to that last part. If you pay attention in science class, you know that if you rub two planes together, they create friction. And what does friction create? Heat. And what happens if you get too much heat? Well, your workpiece cracks, which is exactly what happened after I made that take. The acrylic developed a crack in there because I spun the lathe too fast. So yeah, when you're sanding acrylic, put it down to 500 RPM. That's a much better speed, and keep that sandpaper moving so that you don't get too much heat on that workpiece, because after that I have to start again. And so what you're going to see after this is going to be after I caught up, and we continue from there. So back to the video. Okay, so now that we got it sanded down, we need to sand it a little bit further, but this time we're going to go to the micro mesh. So we're going to start from the 1500, go all the way down to 12,000. And we're going to spin this at a low speed. I'm going to put this at around 500. And be sure to put a clean cloth underneath the workpiece, just so that the water doesn't get on your lathe bed, because I have seen it rust before. So you're going to get a cup of clean water, and you're going to dip the micro mesh in, and we're going to sand it down for just a little bit at a time. Let's see, I'm going to move the speed. We're going to put it at around 500. And as with before, okay, keep making motions straight across. Be sure to dip your micro mesh in water every once in a while, because you don't want that mesh to burn. Now this is the mesh that you will mainly use to put the acrylic down. Everything else is mainly going to be used for polishing. And before you continue on to the next one, stop the lathe for a moment and rub the mesh laterally to get rid of any radial scratches that may be left behind. Now you can do this for the first 3 pads, but then after that you really don't have to worry about it. Those will be negligible from that point out. Okay, so that 1500 is done. Now we move to the dark green pad, the next grit down. And once again, we'll stop the lathe and sand it down laterally. All right, that grit's done. Now we go to the dark gray pad. And we're going to sand it laterally one more time. Then after this point out, you can just sand with the micro mesh radially. You don't have to stop the lathe from this point out. All right, so now we go to the light gray pad as we are 3 down, 6 to go. All right, now we go to the light brown pad. All right, now to the, it's more of a bluish green. All right, now to the purple pad. We got 3 more to go. All right, now to the blue pad. And finally, the magenta pad. And this one is 12,000 grit. Okay, so we've gone through all the micro mesh and it should be looking shiny. Now, this next step is more of an option, but if you want to, we can add some plastic polish to it. So what we do, we're going to grab myself a clean paper towel. And then we're going to grab some plastic polish. What I got here is Mohawk brand. So all you do is that we take our clean cloth, we're going to put in just a little bit. Yeah, this is a whole new bottle. I got to remove the seal. So what we're going to do is that we're going to squirt just a tiny bit of polish. I'm going to shake this up a little bit. going to spray just a little bit of polish on our cloth. We're going to turn our lathe back on, and we're going to rub the polish on the acrylic. And you're just going to keep going until all that polish is gone. And that is pretty much all we're going to do on the lathe. So we're going to remove the tailstock. And at this point we can remove our paper towels since we won't be doing any more work on the lathe. And just so I got polish on my hands, I'll take care of that. So I'm going to remove the water. Just don't want it getting on anything on my lathe. All right, so we're going to remove our nut, remove our bearings, and remove the body. All right. Then make sure to put the nuts back on there just to make sure you don't lose them. And be sure to store the bearings for the next time you're going to do a navigational style fountain pen. So the next thing we're going to do is assembly. So let's go over to the workbench. Okay, before we get to assembly, just a tip for you. If you want to be absolutely sure that your barrels are absolutely flat, you can take a piece of sandpaper and you can twist the end of the barrel into the sandpaper until it is completely flat on that side. But we're going to go ahead and assemble the lower barrel. So what we need to do, so we're going to take one of our body connectors, which is the small black piece. We're going to put one of these trim rings through it, and it is going to be the bigger side facing out, and you'll be putting it in on the flat side, coming in this way, with the threads facing away. So after that, we have we're gonna place one end of it into the longer blank, or the one that's more narrow. We're going to put it into one side. And again, that's going to be I'm just double checking my instructions just to make sure that I am putting it on the correct side. One end of the longest blank. All right, so we're going to put the flat side, the one that is not threaded, into the barrel. So we're going to go to the bench press, push this all the way out. Make sure it is flat before you push it in. Just double checking. Okay, and then we're going to push in slowly. You just push until it is all the way pushed in to the barrel, like that. Now, next instruction, we're going to do the same thing with the other connector. So we have another trim ring, and we have another body connector. So we're going to do the same thing. Trim ring. We're going to insert it on the non-threaded side. The big side of the ring facing away from the threads. And we're going to insert it on the other end of this blank. Double check just to make sure it is straight. Okay, and then we're going to push. All right, and this is what your blank should look like. All right, so now we have the non-threaded end of the finial holder. So let me get that piece for you. I'm just double checking just to try to make sure that I got the correct one. See it in there. There it is. Yeah, it's been hidden in one of the other pieces. But this is the piece that it's talking about. It's very small. And it looks like the body connectors, but it's smaller and it's silver. And what we're going to do is that we're going to put it into the gold finial. That's according to instructions. I believe in this case it's silver. They're both silver in this case. It may also say that there's a spring, but I believe that's the rollerball version. All right, so we're just making sure that everything is in place. So here's our two finials. So we're gonna push these together. So try to see, maybe I don't have to use the, well, I think I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to use the bench press for this. Do this without crushing my fingers. Okay, there we go. All right. Now, of course, if you have the rollerball version, there would be a spring, but since we're using the fountain pen version, we don't have to worry about that step. Now we're going to screw the finial assembly into one of the body connectors. So we're going to take this and we're going to screw it in like that. Now we have the nib and nib holder. Yeah, the nib being the pointy piece of the pen. All right, and the nib holder, which would be, no, that's the cartridge. Yeah, they're telling you to. Yeah, usually the nib holder will already be installed on here. Here's our nib. And for this, we have screw the nib and the nib holder, which we already done. Now the next step is an option. You can either use a piston style pump, or you can use an ink cartridge. Now, since I don't have a bottle of ink with me, we're just going to go with a cartridge. And putting it on is pretty easy. All you have to do, put it to the end and push in until you hear a snap, like that. So now it should be feeding ink into the nib. Then you'll insert it in here and then screw it on, like that. So now that's the body of the pen. Now we have to do the barrel, or the upper barrel, in other words, our cap. We're going to put our trim ring, or the center ring, the trim ring onto the center ring. So I need to grab that. Let's see, and I believe that this is a piece that has already been assembled. Slide the smaller diameter of the cap into of the cap threaded tube. So here's our center ring, here's our tube. We're going to push that in. All right. To press this into one end of the shorter tube, so we're going to insert that in. And push all the way in. You see the black threaded body there, that will be inside. Then slide the top finial through the clip, which I'll grab the clip in just a second. So here's our clip. We're going to put the finial cap on through the top, and then we're going to insert it into the other end of our cap. Trying to make sure I'm satisfied with that. I am, and there is our cap. So in the end, here is our fountain pen. And we are ready to write. Now, if you've never used a fountain pen before, you usually write with the nib facing down. You want the outer part of the nib to face you. That's how it's usually worked for me. But so yeah, I'm glad we've got this done. I'm very happy with the result of this. So that is pretty much it for me. And we'll see if we have any more projects here in the workshop. I will see you guys later.